This podcast is made possible by Planful.
This is Anna King, CFO of Mesh Payments, and you're listening to CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 854.
And then I moved to PharmChem, which is where I am now. We are mainly in the criminal justice arena. We have a drug testing sweat patch. So we do probation, pretrial, and we work with a lot of judges to have the person who needs to be monitored have the patch on their arm for 7 to 10 days, and then it's removed and sent into a lab for testing. And what that testing does is it pulls out all of the molecules that are in that pad, and it tests for the drugs that may have been used in that time period. So I've been there a little over 5 years now. And I've moved to the CFO role.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we feature the last of our CFO interviews conducted at conferences this fall. This one took place at Sweet World and features Shana Veale, CFO of PharmChem. Shana Veale had been working in the Albuquerque, New Mexico office of Arthur Andersen only 8 months when the 88-year-old legendary accounting house collapsed. Being a recent college grad, Veale tells us she really didn't know what to make of the news headlines surrounding the Enron scandal. In business, expect the unexpected is perhaps the best takeaway from Veale's early career chapter, and it's certainly one that came in handy 2 decades later, when the outcome of a proxy fight opened the door to the CFO office. Finance leader Shana Veale explains on this episode. We begin after this. With so much change around us and your need for increasing agility, you have to equip your team to win, and you have to do it now. Join over 1,300 companies of all sizes using Planful to help plan and execute with greater confidence. Planful integrates your critical financial processes to serve the data you need, insights you demand, and the answers necessary to manage your business optimally. Planful lets you plan better, close faster, and report more accurately. And Planful's not just for finance and accounting. It's for the entire business to plan, collaborate, and drive increased financial performance. Take full control of how you administer and manage all of your financial processes and data. And put finance first collaboration at the heart of every decision. When finance is a team sport, you can be a champion. With Planful, you'll be a champion of finance. Get in the game by going to planful.com to learn more. Hello, we're speaking with Shana Veale, CFO of PharmChem. Shana, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So, Shana, we're going to begin where we always do, which is to ask our guests to look back for us. And we're curious about those experiences as you look back, which you now realized shaped you as a finance leader, whether it was a finance experience, a leadership experience. What comes to mind when we ask you to look back?
Well, as I look back, I've had a broad range of experiences, starting in public accounting with Arthur Andersen, right as it crumbled, which taught me a lot about, just public accounting in general and how small the market is, at least where I came from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had to do a couple in-between jobs that weren't really public accounting and then started in tax.
And I want to take a step back there because there's some people who have no idea what you might be referring to, where many of us do. But back in 2001, you got what would have been a dream job for many people coming out of college. You landed at Arthur Andersen, an esteemed public accounting house, which would disappear within 12 months in relation to the Enron situation. just if you wouldn't mind, I mean, can you just take us back to who told you and what you made of it at the time, and were you prepared for what you heard?
Of course. So I actually started with them in September of 2001. And then it was right before 9/11. And then come December 2001, Enron made the news. And being a green, right out of college accountant, I didn't understand what that meant. I had no knowledge, I didn't understand the magnitude of that news story. After the first part of the year, we started having weekly calls internally with our Albuquerque office. Again, still not really understanding the magnitude of this, what had happened. And then come May, the cuts started coming, and I was one of them. I had been with Arthur Andersen for 8 months, and then now found myself with no job.
And it happened with so many. The Enron, it's worth mentioning just because of our audience so familiar with Sarbanes-Oxley, which is another sort of offspring of all of what happened there. History buffs might be able to tell us, and if you're interested, just Google Enron and Arthur Andersen, an esteemed firm that for 100 years provided accounting services in America, was a name brand. But just for this to happen in your very early months on the job, and it was an interesting year altogether with the economy after 9/11. A lot of people didn't know, we were all wondering where things were headed. But from there, as you said, it was a rocky economy, and but you advance. You continue to pick up jobs here and there, and you do find a path. Share, where'd you head to?
So right after that, I went to, there was a local firm, very, very small local firm that actually had 3 ex-Andersen partners from before Enron happened. So I started with them, and they worked mainly with the Navajo Nation, with the Indian reservations, and pulling documentation for them. Decided that was not what I wanted to do. And then I found myself going to another local firm to do taxes. And I was with them for about a year, and that didn't work out. So I managed to get back into public accounting via the tax back door. So I went to KPMG. I had kept in contact with the partner there, the audit partner. So I worked in tax for them for about a year, and then managed to get myself back on the audit side, which is where I truly belonged. And then I transferred here to Fort Worth with KPMG, and then from there, I kind of slowly transitioned into out of public and into industry.
And it's interesting. We had so few finance leaders with roots in New Mexico. I want to point out that you were in the Albuquerque office with Arthur Andersen, and you went to undergrad, I guess, in New Mexico as well. So that was home for a while, I suppose.
Yep.
Yeah. And then of course you just mentioned you moved to you moved to Texas. But please continue. What else would you like to share with us?
So after my transition back into industry, I went to National Cutting Horse Association. That was my first industry job. I went as the controller. That they are an association, so they're not for profit, but they're not a nonprofit as you know them to be. They're a 501c5. So they are the overarching association for the cutting world competitions.
And help us, for those of us who aren't familiar with the horse cutting, we are referring to the...
So a cutting horse actually is a horse that is trained to cut a cow from the herd and keep them out of the herd for branding purposes, for, mainly that's how it started, for branding purposes. Yeah. So this is mainly something that was actually used on ranches. And now it's become a competition to where all these, we bring in lots of cows, and the horse and the rider shows off what they can do.
And you entered their finance function. Did they have a CFO at the time, or what was the type of role you were?
So they had a treasurer at the time who was above me, was asked to leave about 3 weeks after I started. So I was without kind of oversight there. So I had to kind of figure it out very quickly, how they ran, get everything kind of in line, and then maybe we went from there.
Fell in your lap to sort things out as to what needed to get done. Okay.
With that, and like I said, with that role, I was the controller. That was my full-time job. I was a acting treasurer, and an acting youth coordinator all at the same time. So I had a lot of jobs all at once.
Were you, at that stage in your career, were you going to finance conferences? Were you networking already to some degree? You must have been because you searched for jobs. But how would you grade your networking skills at that place in time?
Networking skills, kind of maybe a 3 or 4. Fort Worth is actually relatively small. I know you wouldn't think that, but in the finance industry, it's small. So I already knew a few people, and there was a few networking events I would go to, but you kind of stick to who you know, or
Right.
who you know, who knows you, who they introduce you to. That's kind of how networking for me works. Right. So I was with National Cutting Horse for 3 years, and then I moved to PharmChem, which is where I am now. I came on as their controller, and what they do is we have a drug testing sweat patch. And we are mainly in the criminal justice arena. So we do probation, pretrial, and we work with a lot of judges to have the person who needs to be monitored have the patch on their arm for 7 to 10 days, and then it's removed and sent into a lab for testing. And what the testing does is it pulls out all of the molecules that are in that pad, and it tests for the drugs that may have been used in that time period. So I've been there a little over 5 years now, and I've moved to the CFO role, and that kind of came about. It was going to happen anyways, but it was kind of forced in August of 2021. So we got a whole new board, and then management at that point in time was moved up. So that's how I now have the CFO role.
Interesting. What exactly transpired there then?
Well, so we're traded on the pink sheets. So we got the attention of our new chairman, and he has acquired 30% of us, and they had a proxy fight with our old board and the new board, and it ended up working in their favor. So now they're our new board. So definitely the ones of us that are still there have learned a lot. We didn't know anything about proxy fights. So it's been, I've had a lot of interesting things happen in my career that not a lot of people can say, oh yeah, I've totally been through that too.
This is one of them.
But did the new board have sort of a different vision for the company, or as to where the growth is? Is that something now as CFO you are now pursuing a vision for growth alongside the board?
I do, and unfortunately, we're kind of restricted at the moment into the criminal justice arena, but we did hire a new CEO, so he is tasked with finding the new business units that we can grow into. I think we should go figure out if we can go into the NFL, the NBA. I think that will take a little bit more research and maybe finding the right person.
Well, certainly. It sounds like there could be an application for the offering for sure there.
So tell us about your visibility into the business today. Can you see the numbers that you need to be tracking, or you wake up in the morning and here's what I'm looking at?
Yeah, so with us being very small, we are 9 people. So I do have the CFO title, but I am also the entire accounting department. So I do everything. I do enter checks. We do invoices. I mean, that's my role. So I do see everything. I see everything from the input to the financial reports at the end of the month, which I also put together.
Before the takeover and after the takeover, has there been more of an investment made in the systems you need to see the data or the numbers?
Well, so we switched to NetSuite on 1/1 this year, actually. So I mean, that was the investment into being able to see better, maybe get to be able to work with some KPIs going forward, maybe respond better to the board, the new board that has
Right.
different requirements than what our prior board did. So I think because we went from QuickBooks to NetSuite, and I think that has helped.
Did your CRO similarly? Is she using similar tools, or?
Nope, we're all in NetSuite.
One of the things we love to talk about, Shana, is sort of finance sales collaboration. So here you have this other senior executive working alongside you. making some of these decisions, or let's set up the dashboard this way? Do you consult the CRO, or how does that work?
So, so I run in the admin role in NetSuite. That's just because I'm the one that everybody comes to. Right. She runs in her own role, and she has her dashboard set up to the things that she needs for the sales team. Yeah. Since she oversees them, and I'm just a helper in that regard for the sales team. I provide what they need. I'm support. And then from my dashboard, I have all the other things that, for the reporting purposes, anything that she might need. If she's out at a conference, I can just pull for her really quickly off my dashboard. Right. So we run parallel. Maybe that's not the word. We work together, but we both have separate roles that we use NetSuite differently for.
Is there something that you realized was top of mind for the board, or a number that you knew the board would want to see more often, or something that you've done to make numbers more visible?
Well, so we started, per the board's request, providing weekly KPIs. And we worked with them to say, okay, what is it that you find important? Because we know what we find important and we know what we look at, but maybe it's not what they're concerned with. So it was kind of a back and forth and a trial and error for a couple months to figure out, okay, what information do you need? What's helpful for you? And figure out, okay, how can we pull it? It was learning, because prior we weren't pulling KPIs. We didn't have the system to do it, and the board, our prior board, was very much involved in the day-to-day, so they already knew. Right. So this new board is asking for things, so we had to figure out how to use the system and what do they want.
Did you ever think about outsourcing, like accounting, and certain small organizations do? That's why I ask, but it sounds like it's all on your docket.
We haven't, and we did have a position come in who was helping with kind of like the entering the checks, doing the AR letters and things like that. But there's a lot to do, but it's one of those, like, what can you delegate, and then is there going to be enough work left for me to do? So it's very fragile, but right now I'm not overwhelmed. I feel like sometimes projects come in, you're like, oh my gosh, that's going to take forever. Yeah. But I've managed to figure it out, and haven't had to work into the night too many times.
Is there any point of comparison you can make for us to help us better understand FreshBooks' limitations were versus what you're experiencing now? Is there something that FreshBooks just didn't?
No, yeah. So with the prior system, we didn't really have a CRM system. It was strictly an accounting-based system. It was AR, AP, cash for the most part. And our customer list, they worked off our customer list kind of as the CRM. Well, now that we were tasked with growing the business, faster than we were, we hired 4 new salespeople. We needed a proper CRM. So that's why we picked NetSuite to go to, worked with them to get everything built as we needed to, and then we transitioned over, and now we have a proper CRM, and now we're learning how to use it.
I know I'm not the only one who thought this, but when I heard the name of the company was PharmChem, I thought for certain we were going to speak to a biotech CFO.
It's not. It's a very unique niche market of, we don't have anybody else that does it. It's only us. And we do compete with urine, hair analysis, and even blood testing. We do compete with all of those, but we have a very specific way to make it very non-tamperable, where these other tests, everybody knows how to tamper with. How do you pass a urine test? It's more obvious.
It's obvious because it sort of leaves a trail. There are breadcrumbs, perhaps.
Yeah, because we test the drug, but we tested the parent drug also, which shows that you actually ingested this drug. So they can come with all of their excuses or reasons why that it came out hot, but we're like, but you ingested it. This clearly shows that.
Hi, it's Jack. I hope you're enjoying our talk with CFO Shana Veale of PharmChem. As mentioned earlier, this is the last of our recorded episodes in person at conferences this fall. I did have one other in-person session. Unfortunately, my recorder storage ran out. How's that? Normally, as you know, I do this virtually, so we're doing it over the internet where storage is not so much an issue. So picking up on the theme of this episode, expect the unexpected. Sometimes it does happen. Lessons gleaned this fall from the world of in-person interviews. We now return to our interview with CFO Shana Veale.
If you were to look back to your initial months as a CFO at PharmChem, just as all that responsibility really, I guess when the head of the board said, okay,
you need to head up the finance function.
When you think back to it, what is there anything you would give yourself some advice if at that place in time before you moved into the role? Is there something you would have told yourself?
With that one, I got lucky because the former CFO, we had 3 months with him after the transition. So I was able to gather hopefully all the information that I need going forward, the things that he did that I didn't do when we were splitting roles. Maybe my advice would be to have learned that stuff a little bit earlier when he was doing it and keeping it separate. Maybe I should have tried to, hey, maybe I don't need it now, but maybe let me help you. Let me learn what you're doing so it's not such a big, what do I have to do now? And what are all the steps? So, I think training to that probably was my biggest, okay, what was he doing? Trying to go through his emails or, trying to figure it out. So I think that would be my answer.
So we always like to ask our guests to reflect a little bit on the personal side. We're wondering if you have a personal habit or part of a daily routine that you're known for. It might be, this is sort of outside the office. We're wondering this might be something a family member would tell us about you. That's just Shana. That's what she does. I have a feeling you're going to say you're organized, but don't help us stray, because you would not be unusual in that sense.
No. I am very, in the morning I'm very structured. I do think, I have a lot to do in the mornings. We don't have kids, but we have dogs, and they're still puppies, so there's a lot of things to do. But I'm very timely. My husband is not the timely one, so I'm the one that I want to be on a schedule. Like I wake up I backtrack my schedule. If I have to be out the door by 6:30 and have all these things to do, I'm like, okay, this is going to take this much time. I have to get up at 3:30 to be able to have enough time to do all of these things. He would probably tell you that that's just what I do in the mornings. I can wake up at a certain time. I have things to do, and then I'm out the door when I said I wanted to be. Probably at work too. I'm quick to help. I will if anybody has a question, I put down whatever I'm doing to get to them. That way they're not waiting on me. And I've done that my whole career.
Is there a book or something that's influenced your thinking in some way over time? And I always say it doesn't have to be a business book. It might be something you escape with.
It might be outside of what we're talking about here, but Compete Every Day is a book that I read that kind of helped change my mindset a little bit. And it's not all, it is more of an exercise, like a motivational remember to exercise type company, but it had a lot of good stories on how to organize your day, how to, make sure that you're taking care of the important things first before you completely zone out and go to social media, or before, and that's a big thing. So I kind of, in my head, I refer back to that book a lot. And it's a very small book. It's a quick read, but I do recommend it.
I'm quickly jumping on Amazon here. I'm just looking for the author's name.
His name is Jake.
You got it. It's Jake Thompson, The Not-So-Secret Secret to Winning Your Work and Life. Compete Every Day. Thank you for that. We always like getting a new book, and I don't think we've had it recommended before. So, Shana, thank you for that. So we always end, Shana, with this question. Looking forward over the next 12 months, what would be your priorities as a CFO?
So for the coming 12 months, my priority is going to be, obviously being responsive to the board, making sure that they have what they need all the time. And then the audit's coming up in my next 12 months. So I'm going to make sure that I'm getting audit ready now. because my audit's in January and it's very fast. I got to close and then I have the audit. So that's my priority coming up, is get everybody what they need. Let me focus on getting my stuff ready and prepared for the audit.
CFO Shana Veale, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Hello, listeners. Do us a favor. Be certain to subscribe to CFO Thought Leader on Apple Podcasts, or if you're an Android user, check us out on Spotify or Google Play. If you like the show, please recommend it to a friend.